Ladies and gentlemen, dear conference participants, my name is Hannele Niemi and I worked at the University of Helsinki. I am professor and research director at this university. I am also UNESCO chair, having nomination to promote equity and quality globally in learning and education. Today, I have great pleasure to work with you and give my presentation, and that is very important today that we still can have some kind of connection, even though we can't be authentically face-to-face in the conference. So I thank you very much for this invitation to give my presentation. I will share my slides now with you. Just a moment, please. And now I think you can see my slides, and my topic is to what extent can in-service training and professional development, PD, take place online? This question is very urgent today when we are now in the middle of pandemic times and almost everybody is working online, especially teachers in different countries. When we are speaking about online learning, we have to ask, what is it? Especially when speaking about teachers' work. We can speak about online learning, and then we can have teachers' own professional learning in our mind. That professional learning that happens very often as a participant in online courses. There can be different themes, very often focusing on subject matters of the school curriculum. Then there is another viewpoint, online learning of teachers. And then we ask how teachers acquire competence to use information and communication technology. And now you can see that I use ICT, meaning that there is both aspects, information and communication, in technological applications. We can ask how capable they are of applying that competence to their teaching and learning. Teachers' role is double. Teachers are both online learners for their own professional learning, but then they are also online providers when they are creating courses or other kind of learning opportunities to their students. My task in this presentation is to provide first a short history, introduction of in-service training for teachers' professional development to use ICT over the last 20 years in Finland. And then also what we have learned about teachers' professional development and online learning. And then I moved to the recent developments in teachers' online learning. And finally, what has COVID-19 meant for teachers and online learning in Finland. When we are speaking about online learning, there are many definitions. What does that mean? And I will use in my presentation Cyclist's definition that distance education is a form of education which brings together the physically distant learners and the facilitators of the learning activity around planned and structured learning experiences via various two- or multi-way mediated media channels that allow interactions between and among learners, facilitators, as well as between learners, and educational resources. So distance learning and online learning means that there are many kinds of interaction between learners, between facilitators, and also educational resources like different technological tools and learning platforms and digital tools what are available. So in Finland, we have a long history how we can use computers and ICT in education. It started 1980s when computers came in education and schools were provided with computer classes. These were the first steps when teachers started to use computers, but in this beginning it was mainly those specialized teachers who had some earlier competence using ICT. It was the time when also computing with information technology became a school subject in Finland. And then there was an emphasis to provide all teachers with at least some kind of ICT's basic skills and give further training to more advanced teachers. But this time was also changing. 1995 in Finland started information and society programs. And that means that now ICT and computing wasn't not anymore a specific subject. It was more combined to all subject matters, and we spoke intercurricular subject. And that set new demands for teachers to use ITC in learning and pedagogy. There was massive in-service training. Mainly they were face-to-face, but then it was also very importantly the change of the concept of knowledge. In Finland, curriculum development was turned to the idea that learners must be seen as active players in information processing, and ICT was seen as a tool for that. So that means that technology was not only some specific area or field as itself. It should be connected to school subject matters and to different kind of work in school everyday life. But then that was also expand to the whole Finnish society. And then 2000 there was a lot of emphasis for strategic planning in schools and teacher education, how they use ICT. And there was the idea that every teachers must have at least moderate ICT competence, half should have good competencies, and 15 excellent competencies in such a way that they can be supporters and tutors for the school community to other peer teachers. And 2004, 2006, we have more and more this kind of support and encouragement how to use ICT. 2007, 2015, that was moved more multiform teaching, so that technology has a very important role in all subject matters. They must be interactive modes, and now internet came almost everyone through mobile devices, and social media was becoming also part of everyday life. So that means that teachers have been part of this whole society process. Even though there has been also very many voices that is not already the situation where teachers are capable to use ICT and online learning in their working, but gradually they were trained and trained, even though there was every time new demands and challenges when we stepped to the next decade or next years, because technology was changing so rapidly. So now we are in situation that government has expressed in their government program 2015-2021 that pre- and in-service teacher education will be reformed. The introduction of digital materials and new learning environments will be facilitated through digital pedagogical training. Every Finnish teacher will be offered access to online learning starting from one's own level. So even though there has been 20 years training of ICT and technology to use in schools, there is still a lot to do. And that is something we still are working very much. That had also consequence how teachers' own professional learning online could happen. And that had also challenge how to use new technology in a pedagogically relevant way. And both in teachers' own professional learning and when they are providers, ICT is seen more as a tool for the mind than the technology as itself. Because new platforms are interactive and they allow more communication. Also, online learning has moved toward more collaboration, interactivity, and communication. So, online learning offered to teachers have moved so-called towards blended learning. And this blended learning means that there almost in every course they participate, there are partly some real, authentic, intensive course parts, but then also there are virtual communication. So that means that now in teachers' online training, it's very much used different kind of interactive methods like Moodle, Zoom, Teams, or other normal online learning tools. So they are used in schools, but they are also used in teachers in service training. So we have moved to multi-form and multi-channel learning. And we can see that they are complementary and we have to use different kinds of channels for social interaction before the course, during the course, and after the scheduled moment of the course. Co-creation and sharing with colleagues in producing new teaching materials, new documents, and other artifacts, that's something is very important and very common in teachers in service training. So that they are doing something together online, and then they are sharing, and then they also have opportunity to discuss on these. So we have examples of blended learning. We have some studies, even 2004 and after that, and they usually are long-term in-service training programs, because very often there is time for doing their own experiments or their own pedagogical some kind of innovative processes at school, and then they give these artifacts or their experiences in common discussion with other teachers. So we have learned that courses and activities were valuable for day-to-day teaching, and especially where teachers could cooperate, reflect, plan in other things, and doing many things in small groups. So the positive issue was that interaction between participants didn't stop when the course or program was over. And then we have also how 2013 teachers' reflection of inquiry teaching in Finland before and during in-service program. That means that there is interaction before the course and during the course, and there is this sharing process. So these examples just are giving some kind of idea that the communication and doing something together and sharing something is important learning process for teachers. And then very often this kind of communication can continue like a network after this kind of in-service training. We have also some publications about blended learning, or how to combine different kinds of activities in teachers' work and teachers' in-service training, Finnish innovations and technologies in schools, especially thinking how we can create ecosystem of learning. That means that there is multi-partners, there are different actors, there can be even students and even parents in those courses, just like visitors or giving their contribution. So that means that there can be different kinds of combinations how to create new practices and new innovations. Certainly, we also have traditional courses, but I think that we are trying to move more and more long-term courses or programs where we can apply this kind of blended learning experiences. And we have also very challenging and demanding time, as in most European countries and in schools everywhere in the global world. March 18, schools were closed because COVID-19. And the Finnish National Agency for Education expressed that due to the corona outbreak, school premises in Finland are now closed and education is provided remotely as distance learning. But then they also made very clearly the starting point in the arrangements is to aim at deviating from normal operation as little as possible. That means that every morning school started distantly. They gather to the screen at homes. They had classes given by teachers, but remotely. And that happened everywhere in Finnish schools. That was a new thing for teachers. They had 3 days to prepare themselves to this new phase. And that was amazing how teachers took new role being a distant teacher. Some teachers said on the national news that the change situation was shock at first, but then they started to utilize their experience and creativity to make distance teaching work. And it was quite effective change. Teachers had basic skills in ICT, as we have tried to train them, but also they have experiences, online communication and educational applications, especially with homes. We have web services named Wilma that teachers, students and their guardians use to transfer information between schools and home. That was then taken as the first tool in distance school, that teachers could deliver assignments, different kind of materials through this communication service. But then very often they was using Teams or Zoom or other kind of platforms where they could be interactively online communication with their classes and student groups. So we had nationally a survey for all basic education students from 7 to 15 years old, and tentative results of that. And we could see that students, 50,000 students has responded to this survey, that most students were 2 to 5 hours in a day in distance school. Some were even 6 to 7 hours. But that gives idea that it was really school at distance. And teachers gave assignments, sent materials, most teachers. They gave video teaching, but then there was also around 40% of teachers who used a lot of discussion groups, but also there was some who provided personal discussion with students. So teacher gave opportunity to be available through internet. And then it was also the time when we wanted to see what we can learn from this time. Even though distance education, we could see it was pretty well functioning, we still can learn a lot from this pandemic time. We could see that distance learning increases inequalities among students. Those students who had learning difficulties, those difficulties grew. And even though we tried to give some special need support, it would be needed more. So we have to focus, if this continues, on the learning difficulties and how to support students who have some problems in learning. That always happened, that students have also difficulties and problems. And then there was also motivational factors. First, students said that that's okay to be at distance school, but later on they say that it's very tiring, it's boring in many ways, and they miss their peers, they miss authentic communication in schools. So school is much more than only learning some contents. It's much more communication place, it's much more the place where people can work together. Teachers' capacity to use digital tools also differ. Some parents had a lot of stress and burdens. Studying at home can be very demanding for some students. and teachers need pedagogical and technical support for sharing opportunities. Schools must be prepared for exceptional times and have strategies for that. So what we can learn, we learn how important is social aspects in learning. And when we are speaking about also online learning of teachers, we can see that also in this kind of learning situations, communication, sharing, co-creation together is very important resource for teachers' own learning. So when we speak about what extent can in-service training and PD take place online, first of all, we have to ask what kind of online learning is provided. We have to keep in mind social factors, interactive communication, sharing, co-creation, and that very important issue that the sense of school community is important. And we need also spontaneous and authentic interaction, which is challenging in only online communication. We have learned that teachers need continuously updated digital competencies for their own learning, but also for providing new learning environments to their students. PD can be offered partly online, and we have effective tools and digital environments for that. What we think is that blending learning connects authentic and online training, and both aspects, both authentic and virtual, are needed. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm available very much also for your questions later on. Thank you, and I wish a good conference to everyone.